Well, welcome everyone to Q&A. My name is Patrick Langrell. I head up engagement and public affairs here at the Institute for Ethics and Society at Notre Dame, your host for this evening. Thank you all for coming out. We have a great turnout tonight here. It's wonderful to see. No doubt due to, I think, our all-star cast that we have. We have from my left, former High Court Judge, the Honourable Michael Kirby. We have the Catholic Archbishop of Sydney, Archbishop Anthony Fisher. And to my right, we have a Senior Research Fellow from the Heritage Foundation, Ryan T. Anderson, and we have Senior Research Fellow from the Centre for Public Christianity, Justine Toe, and the Managing Director of the Australian Christian Lobby, Lyle Shelton. Please welcome our panel. Well, at our Q&A, we let the audience ask the questions on anything and from anyone. So thank you to those who've submitted a range of questions. I think we've got quite an exciting topic and range of issues to discuss. Don't let that hold you back, though. If you haven't submitted one in advance, please pop your hand up and I'll try and see if we can fit things in and keep the conversation going. My role as moderator is to keep things brief and to the point, and I'll be doing just that. I'm afraid to say we have no pulpit here this evening, nor bench, nor TV cameras, except the cameras we have recording things our own, so brevity is the order of this evening. In that sense, I guess we'll be taking our cues from King Henry VIII, who is often quite known of saying to his many wives, "I won't keep you here too long." First question, without further ado, from the floor is Nick. Over there in the middle. Might get a mic just up to Nick.
Thanks. What a lovely panel up there. Such a pleasure to be here. My question is on social media. FOMO, or the fear of missing out. Nomophobia, the fear of forgetting one's mobile phone or being out of range of Wi-Fi. And FAD, Facebook addiction disorder, are just some of the digital-related anxieties reported to be affecting our daily lives. Of course, there are pluses of social media, but I wonder about the hidden side effects on things like how we relate to others, think, act, and speak. Basically, popular search engines like stupid, making us all really Google.
I might swipe right to you on this one, Justine. Are things like Tinder messing up with our love lives?
I wouldn't know from personal experience, but well, I think what the question's pointing out is that technology has a real shaping effect on us, and we are really unwise if we don't think that this is the case. I mean, we may hold the iPhone or smartphone in our hand, but in some ways, you know, it holds us in a whole other entire way that we need to be aware of. I think that one thing that really bothers me about it is that social media tends to kind of sequester us in our own private world, and in a way that allows us to control, you know, what sort of influence other people have on us, and to kind of keep people at arm's length if we want to as well. And so I wonder if, you know, as a Christian, I am ultimately interested in open, other-regarding relationships where, you know, my life is inevitably bound up with others. If the kind of privatization that social media, I guess, enhances and nurtures, sequesters me so much in that world that it leaves me unable to engage with the other in the way that I think is best for all of us, and that makes for our flourishing. I also think that social media takes away these crucial opportunities for silence and self-reflection. I think that it's really important for all of us to confront those quiet moments and to think about what's really important in life and who we are when all the music stops, you know, or when all the tweets die down, and they never die down. Yeah, so I think that's really important. I do remember reading in Sherry Turkle's book how there was a woman that she came across at a funeral, and, you know, of all times to take a moment and reflect on the big things of life, this woman kind of just pulled out her phone and was kind of on her phone. And Turkle makes the point that, you know, we've had this technology for less than a decade in terms of the smartphone, kind of, you know, the world at our fingertips and so on. And somehow this woman had been so schooled by that technology, she was unable to take a moment. And so I think there's something in that for all of us. I don't know if you're anything like me. When you have a spare moment, you're on Facebook, swiping, you know, up and down. And I think that we should really try and sit with those quiet moments and see what happens in them.
Now, Ryan, I'm going to dob you in here, but one of the first things you said to me after I met you here was, does this place have a Wi-Fi? So now you're not, oh, now you are holding it, there we go, so it didn't take too long. So obviously, you know, social media is pretty great. What are your thoughts?
I wanted to live tweet the event because all of my friends are sleeping right now back at home in the United States at a
3 a.m. in the morning
yeah.
or something like that.
My general thought about this is that technology is what we make of it. And I think smartphones and the various apps that we can use on them, precisely because they're such a relatively new phenomenon, we haven't always made the best decisions about how to use them, but we're working this stuff out. All of a sudden, I just got a deep echo. So, I mean, I think to a certain extent, yeah, it's a decade old. We still don't know how best to utilize the technology of an iPhone. Like, how can we use it constructively to build up community, not destructively? I think, what was it the Vanity Fair article that everyone's talking about right now? How Tinder is, you know, undermining sexual relationships. People, you know, swiping through and how many times they can hook up in a week. Clearly, it exacerbates some of the baser parts of our nature because of the anonymity, because of the immediacy, and so it has extra pitfalls for things that have always been temptations in life. So I think the challenge now for the second decade of this technology is how do we set up the proper kind of barriers so that we harness this for the good and don't allow it to trip us up into the bad.
Selfie polls are sort of all the rage at the moment. Most popular Christmas gift, apparently. Archbishop, what are your thoughts? You've been sort of carrying around a selfie pole around church for a while.
My crozier is not a selfie pole.
Sorry. It's easy to mistake them.
And in fact, you might be interested to know that the Vatican has now banned them from the Sistine Chapel. I think that people are poking each other's eyes out.
Bishops are poking each other's eyes out with croziers.
I think they've been called the wand of Narcissus, the selfie pole. Like, all these people that don't actually look at the Sistine Chapel, but put a stick down there with their head and then the Sistine Chapel above them, so they can send a photo to someone in which they kind of fix up to make themselves look more beautiful before they post it. Well, I mean, I love a lot of these technologies. I use them a lot myself. I think they're for information gathering, for networking. They've got lots of positives, but I do think that, no, we get all this information, yet I'm not sure we're wiser, and we get all this networking, and yet lots of people still feel very isolated. And Pope Francis recently suggested we might fast periodically from these technologies, not just from food and drink, chocolate in Lent, but fast from social media for a while, just to give ourselves some time to relearn ordinary human communication. When I see a boyfriend and girlfriend in a cafe and they're both on the machine, instead of looking at each other full of romance, I wonder if something isn't going wrong. So I'd favour fasting from these occasionally, even though I love them myself too.
Now, Ryan and Lyle, both of you are very active on Twitter, on Facebook. Mr. Kirby, I'm not sure whether you have Facebook or Twitter, but you do have, I think you were the first, or maybe still the only judge to have an extensive website full of articles and your speeches and transcripts. So obviously online presence has been a big thing with your work. How do you see these things?
Yes. I had to get somebody to explain what this question was going to be about. But I mean, you love it and you hate it. I'm not into the social media because I'm getting in every day at 5 a.m. I keep pushing it back. And just to answer my emails, you've got to get in earlier and earlier. So, and you know, at 5 a.m., getting on the train, everyone in the carriage except me is sitting there looking at their machine and tapping away. I agree with the Archbishop. I think human communications are so important. And the point of this question, I think, is everybody wants to be respected, everybody wants to have friends, everybody wants to feel comfortable and to have a community and to have support. And now perhaps because we're failing to give that to everybody, people are resorting to communicating through these instruments which don't speak back to them, but which can bring messages to them. And it's not going to go away. And I think we can say, well, we should fast or we should do this. It's really not going to be subject to control in this way. I think it's just going to go ahead because we love it and we hate it. You hate the bulk of it and the enormity of it, but then I look at somebody in the carriage, in the train, they get a most beautiful smile on their face. They've read something that really thrills them, and it's a sort of gratification. So this is the world we live in, and it's not going to change anytime soon. It's going to get more intensive, but the human communication, which is so important, is just going to be absent from what it was in my time. I think that's a bit of a worry.
The Supreme Court and the High Court both now have Twitter, so they're using that quite regularly. You don't think there's any chance that High Court judgments might come out in 140-character tweets anytime soon?
Yes, this is dangerously modern of them. In my time, I urged that they should have cameras in the court. The Supreme Court of Canada has cameras. After all, the High Court is pretty sort of ethereal, and the judges just sit there and they hear argument, and there are no witnesses, and it's not as if there's going to be big shocks. But the judges were not in favour of that. I think there might have been one or two of them who agreed with me, but most of them thought no. But it is part of the government of the country, so I think it's a good thing that they're going out, but it's certainly a different attitude to exist. It's a definite plus for Justice French, Chief Justice French, that they've done this, but that wouldn't have been agreed to 10 years ago.